the whole mission that I have in life is very simple. It's to help rid the world of solo economic dependency, which means that if you're personally not working, you're not making any money. What we're helping people do is get that side income that's passive so that they can work because they want to, not because they have to. And true freedom in life is when you work when you want, where you want, and with whom you want.
Man of Mastery, episode 74 with Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek. Guys, it's been said that the highest work a man can do is on himself. And I believe that's because that's what's required to then have the greatest impact on the world, to be of service in the greatest way to those around him. Here at Man of Mastery, we talk about 6 domains: mind, body, and soul, world, work, and play. Certainly within that work realm is wealth building, wealth management. It is absolutely on you to get squared away financially. I know a ton of high earners, particularly in medical, in consulting, other fields where guys are making a ton of money, but they're trading hours for dollars. There's not a lot of passive income, money while you sleep going on. And today's guest is going to take us through his approach with land investing and flipping and resale. He gets real specific on where he finds his land, how to find it, how to approach it, how to approach reselling it or carrying a seller note on it, the process he goes through to do due diligence before that investment, how he structures the paper for the deals. So great information today. Really looking forward to taking you through that with Mark. Just for one moment before we do jump in, a couple quick reminders. Please hit the website where you're not only going to find the show notes for this episode and links to some free resources from the Land Geek, but I'd also like you to go out there, sign up for the email list so you stay on top of what we're doing and what we have to offer. As a reminder, there's the private Facebook group. Also on the website, you're going to find discounts for some products and services I use myself, 100% get behind and firmly recommend. So if they are in your wheelhouse, go hit that link and take advantage of the discounts. All right, guys, last reminder is please do me the greatest favor in the world. If you're getting value out of this pod, please share it with others. And please go out there, and if you haven't already, rate, review, and of course, subscribe. All right, with that, let's get into it today with Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek. All right, hey, today's guest is Mark Podolsky, affectionately known as the Land Geek. He runs Frontier Equity Properties, is the author of Dirt Rich, and is an expert and trusted and foremost authority on buying and selling raw, undeveloped land. So, Mark, I saw in your credentials you have transacted over 5,000 real estate deals over time. That's pretty impressive. Super interested in talking to you today. Looking forward to hearing about what you do, and thank you and welcome to the show.
Michael, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. We've talked to a number of folks on the show about real estate, in investing and taking care of our financial health and as providers and in thinking about legacy in what we do in our life journey and kind of setting up those next generations comes into play. It's part of one of the things that we've got to look after and endeavor to master. And real estate's an amazing tool. Land, raw land is something I've personally always been curious about in that regard. And so really looking forward to learning from you today. It's a big topic. Where do we start?
Well, I think a good place to start is just how I even got into it, because I had no real estate background prior to buying and selling raw, undeveloped land.
Amazing. Okay, perfect. Let's start there.
So, let's just rewind the tape to 2000. And I'm a miserable, micromanaged 45-minute commute there and back. Felt like I had no control investment banker. And I specialize in mergers and acquisitions with private equity groups. And Michael, it got so bad for me that I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating having to be back at work on Monday. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that as a side hustle, he's buying up raw land at tax deed auctions. He's flipping them online, and he's making a 300% return on his investment. Well, I'm looking at companies all day long, and a great company, 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Your average company is at 10%. And I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So of course I don't believe him. So we go to New Mexico. I've got 3 grand saved up for car repairs. I do exactly what he tells me to do. I buy 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. I put them up online, and they all sell for an average price of $1,200 each, 300%. It worked. So I took all that money. I went to another auction, and this is in Arizona where I live. And again, it's 2000, so there's no one in the room, and I'm buying up lots, and I'm buying up acreage, pennies on the dollar. And I sell all that property over the next 6 months, and I made over $90,000 cash. So I go to my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm going to quit my job and become a full-time land investor. And she's pregnant. And she's like, absolutely not.
Right,
so I said,
right.
okay. So I worked land investing part-time, and it took about 18 months for the land investing income to exceed the investment banking income. And then I quit, and I've been doing it full-time ever since, and I absolutely love it.
That is awesome. I will say, it sounds like you were even fortunate as an iBanker, especially in the M&A space, that you even had weekends or spare time to do any of this.
I know. It's miserable.
So
Just,
were these all taxable transactions then when you're buying and reselling, or is there some
yeah,
way to
it's
carry
all
that forward?
ordinary income when you're buying and reselling because you're a dealer in raw land. Now, there's ways to structure it where you can get capital gains. And that's one of the things that, um, you know, like I had a podcast called the Best Passive Income Model Podcast. And I would interview people who are experts, and I'd walk them through my model. And I'll walk you through the model. And I'd say, do I have the best passive income model? And there's this one guy, he's like, yeah, it's great. He's like, but you get no tax benefits. You don't get depreciation because land lasts forever. So a lot of times we have to be a little bit creative to get tax benefits. We can do a self-directed IRA or invest in a qualified retirement plan, essentially where we can, start growing, because we make about 300 to 1,000% on these transactions and just really grow our retirement tax deferred or tax free using this model. But that's,
Yeah,
yeah. So you're
gotcha.
right. Like it's not, it's from a tax standpoint, you've got to be a little bit creative.
Okay, got it. So there's the capital gains aspect, but maybe not the tax deductions aspect through depreciation or something like that. Yeah, could
Right.
we, if this isn't just diving too deep right away, could we talk about your passive income model? Because when I think raw land and income, I'm not quite sure how that fits together.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Michael, you're in San Diego, California, right?
Right.
So I'm going to pretend that you own 20 acres of raw land in Texas.
Okay.
And we're going to pretend that you owe $200 in back taxes. So already from the get-go, you're advertising two things to me. Number one, you've no emotional attachment to that raw land. You're in California, the property's in Texas. And number two, you're distressed financially in some weird way because you haven't paid your property taxes. And when we don't pay for things, we don't value them in the same way. And as a result, the county treasurer is sending you notices every month saying, Michael, if you don't pay your property taxes, you're eventually going to lose this parcel to a tax deed or a tax lien investor. So what I'm going to do as the person who wants to buy your property, I'm going to look at the comparable sales on your 20-acre parcel for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm going to take the lowest comparable sale and I'm going to divide by 4. And that's going to get me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm going to send you an actual offer on your 20-acre parcel. So let's say the lowest comp is 10 grand. I'm going to make an offer of $2,500 for your parcel. Now you accept it because for you, $2,500 is better than nothing. Now, in reality, 3 to 5% of people accept my quote unquote top dollar offer. Now, once you accept it, I've got to confirm a few things, right? I have to go through due diligence or In-depth research. I got to confirm you still own the property. Back taxes are only $200. There's been no breaks in the chain of title. There's been no liens or encumbrances. There's, something compelling about the property. What's access like? What's around there? So we outsource our due diligence to our team in the Philippines, and they provide all this information for us. They go through our checklist. It costs about $11. Now we're going to pretend everything checks out, and we're going to buy that property from you for $2,500. Now, if it's $5,000 or more, we're going to close through title. But in this case, we're going to do a direct close because it's only $2,500. So now, Michael, I'm going to sell this property 30 days or less, and I have a built-in best buyer. Do you know who it is?
No idea.
It's the neighbors. The neighbors. So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, hey, here's your opportunity. Protect your privacy, protect your views, know your neighbor. So oftentimes the neighbors will just go ahead and buy that parcel.
So just
now
adjacent property,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. And they know the area. Now, if the neighbors pass, I'll go to my buyers list. My buyers list passes, I'll go to a little website you may have never heard of called Craigslist. It's the 10th most trafficked website in the United States. I'll go to an even smaller one. I'm pretty sure you may have heard of this one. It's called Facebook. There's buy-sell groups, and then there's a marketplace. And then I'll go to the lands. Landmodo.com, landandfarm.com, landsofamerica.com, landflip.com, landhub.com, the lands. And these are platforms where people can buy and sell raw land all day long. And what we're going to do is, the way we're going to sell it in 30 days or less is we're going to make it irresistible. So I'm going to owner finance the property. So for your parcel, let's just say it's, I paid $2,500. I'm going to ask for a $2,500 down payment. And then I'm just going to make it a car payment. Let's say $449 a month, 9% interest over the next 84 months. So it's a one-time sale. I'm going to get my capital out on the down. I might go 6 months out. And then I've got a passive income stream of $449 a month, 9% interest. Michael, I don't have to deal with renters, rehabs, renovations, rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, all this onerous real estate legislation. And then the game we play is, can we create enough of these land notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And now we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
When you said fixed expenses, first I was thinking on the investments themselves, but now you're talking as a portfolio, me as an individual, freeing myself from active income.
Yeah. Exactly.
Got it. Okay, awesome. So that totally makes sense on how you're creating cash flow over time. You took back your $2,500 in that example, and then you created $450 a month on this one times however many you're doing. Yeah, and you're going out and finding them yourself now versus when you first started. It was at organized auctions. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was at organized auctions. Now we want to get that property before we have to go to a competitive setting at auction. So we're going to send out letters with offers so that, there's a very simple philosophy. I can always make more money. I can't get more time. So 90% of the model is actually automated with software, systems, processes, inexpensive virtual assistants. And so we're using all these forms of leverage to scale, essentially.
Awesome. Really cool. So what is that? When you went and started doing this in 2000, let me try to wind back the mental clock. We're in the .com equity boom. I'm happy that Salesforce.com is up 2,000%. Gold is down at $300 an ounce or something in those days. Right. And real estate's probably the furthest thing from people's minds. These days, it feels like real estate's at another peak. And with COVID and urban unrest and violence and whatnot, I think a lot of people are looking to land, even not only as investment, but let's get out of here and go live somewhere maybe a little safer or however that feels, reconnect to nature even. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing more competition now, or supply and demand?
No, it's the weirdest thing, that the opportunities that this virus has created, and in a way, I'm almost ashamed to say that we're thriving when so many people are suffering and losing their jobs, and there's so much economic uncertainty. But because of our asset class, We cannot, we're just selling out. As fast as we're buying was as fast as we're selling because people are flocking to assets like gold, silver, Bitcoin, raw land. When the government, puts trillions of dollars into the economy, essentially we're looking at, typical inflation hedges. And, people just understand like we don't want a dollar. It's not going to be worth much.
Right. Yeah. Real tangible assets.
Right.
I, yeah, I kind of remember the dot-com boom, right? There was always sort of the litmus test or the joke of, when the taxi driver wants to start talking to you about, about technology investing, or you go get a haircut and they're asking you about, um, I don't know, real estate in the last boom, 10, 12
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
ago.
I remember that, um, that great Michael Lewis book, The Big
Yeah.
Short.
Right.
And, they go to the strip club and the stripper has 12 houses in Vegas.
Right.
And
Exactly.
like, what? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you just know like there's something really off with all this.
Exactly. And I mention that because I mean, and you're kind of headed in that same spirit. In the last 2 weeks, I've probably had people ask me about cryptocurrency and physical metals more than ever before. And you know, it just strikes me as strange in the sense that some of these people are very traditional, very conservative investors, and also just from the perspective of these have just been, well, let's take Warren Buffett, right? He's been very vocal against things like precious metals for a long time, and now he buys a miner, a gold miner, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I'm going for a haircut today. Finally, I got COVID hair, my first haircut since December, and I'm curious, does my hairstylist ask me about something other than staying in paper fiat U.S. dollars?
Right. Right. I mean, and that's the thing is, um, it's a supply demand issue. And, when you go into this much debt, there's only, we saw this again. The last time we saw this, it was a long-term debt cycle in World War II, and we had to reset. And, then in the 70s, we went off the gold standard, and governments just go crazy with fiat currency. So we're either going to be a failed state or we're going to have to reset the debt. It's just too much. It's unsustainable the way it is now.
Absolutely. And it's probably been unsustainable since the global financial crisis, but we've propped it up. But I'm not sure the plates are going to keep spinning.
Right.
So what happens? We saw. I thought maybe this was going to happen and we would reset in 2008, 2009, but we got a deflationary cycle. Maybe we're headed something to more like, if we don't do a complete monetary reset, maybe it looks like 70s creeping into the 80s, high interest rates, sort of a stagflation environment. What does an environment of inflation in general look like for real estate and land specifically?
Well, for land, it's great because it's a standard inflation hedge because it's a real asset. So it's just like gold or silver. So it's always been a traditional inflation hedge. I think, where our model you would see some type of downturn is we're sort of my niche is like the long tail of real estate. So like I'll give you an example. In 2008, I had a great year in my land business. 2009 wasn't bad. I really got hit hard in 2010. And I talk about this in my book to Rich, where about 50% of my note portfolio, it seemed like it just went away one day. And I had to reset all these assets and resell them and figure out, a new pricing model. But what I didn't realize at the time, because I'd never been through that real estate cycle, was, I had the luxury of seeing this 2 years ahead of time and start preparing for it. And, but unfortunately, I just didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody kind of guiding me, and I had Parkinson's law of money. So the more money I made, the more money I spent, and I created this huge personal overhead for myself, which made me, miserable. And luckily, I mean, it's weird to say, but 2010 really was a great ego kick that I needed, and made me reset my own values on, what do I really, what's really important to me in life, what really truly, brings me joy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, not to stray too far off topic, but I mean, part of what we do on the show is talk a lot about mindset, and it permeates everything, and especially as an investor, because it does become so emotional, and it's not always going to be up and to the right, right? We have downturns, we have troughs, we have mistakes. We just have the natural sort of up and down flow of things, which is everywhere in nature and life. And what do you learn from those lessons, and what do you do with it, as opposed to giving up or quitting, or something like that. And I just so to put it in a little bit different terms, I just spoke to an amazing therapist the other day, a therapist and coach who specializes in working with teenage kids in particular. And he goes, look, it's not all about looking backwards at your pain. That's a thing. It's real. But you know what? We all have pain. We all have suffering. We all have hardship. It's about the hero's journey. Every superhero gets created out of some trauma, right? So
Right.
stop the pity party and figure out how 2009 really hurt. But what do I do? What do I do with that in the future?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I love that visual. It's not how hard you fall, it's how high you bounce back. And it's so true, where it does give, life kind of gives you these lessons. And nobody rides for free, you're right. Even people we think have this amazing life, the rich and famous, and then we find out, they're suddenly depressed and suicidal. Like, well, how is that possible? So nobody really rides for free. And yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, you take those lessons and you apply them, and it makes you, just such a stronger, more, uh, developed human being
Right.
as you kind of grow up and move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs into self actualization.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And not to say it's easy, but by any means, far from it sometimes. But what other choice is there? Do you give up, right? So, yeah, just I'm curious about a couple things about 2009. When you say half of your passive income went away, what does that mean? People defaulted on those notes you were carrying?
Right. So people defaulted on the note. So it was between, food or paying for their land, and they chose
Mhm.
food, um, which I understood. But luckily, the way that we structure it is we use land contracts as opposed to deeds of trust. So there was no cost of foreclosure, but I had to rebalance this land portfolio because the pricing I was selling at 2005, 6, 7, 8 was completely different in this new, economic reality. And it was all novel to me. I had no way to know how to do it except try it. And that's the great thing about the land investing niche that I'm in. And it's the terrible thing about the land investing niche that I'm in is it's a completely inefficient market. So nobody really knows the value of the land. It's really truly what a buyer and a seller agree to. So it takes some time to figure out, okay, well, what's the new economic reality for this raw land where it's going to fly off the shelves again? And it took some time to figure that out. And then, by 2012, 13, it was all rebalanced and all resold and cash flowing amazing again.
Right. Okay. So you didn't necessarily have all that cash flowing on a monthly basis, but you did have the model where you'd taken back your initial investment, and
Right.
you talk about rebalancing your own monthly nut sort of thing. I got to ask. So that's 9 years or so, 9, 10 years into your land investing endeavor. Um, what was your wife's emotional journey from no, you're not doing this as a full time gig to 18 months later you sort of proved it out to 2009 half the portfolio goes bust?
Yeah, I mean, she was really supportive, and um, she understood, like, because it wasn't just me that was going through it; the whole world was going through it. So it's not like I was, some type of failed unicorn out there. So we did what we had to do, and we started the downsizing process, and in a weird way, we were way happier. So instead of going out, on a Wednesday night and going out for this big, crazy dinner, we'd stay home and cook and we'd play charades with the kids. And we found like, oh my gosh, this is way better to do this. So having sort of these built-in financial boundaries, it really in a weird way, was the greatest blessing ever, because now you start experiencing that there's nothing out there that's really going to make us happy, because we got all those things. We checked off all those egoic boxes: the big house, the big cars, the big vacations, the nanny, the housekeeper, the private schools. And then when we lost all that, it was like, oh my gosh, we're so much happier, because we're realizing there's nothing out there that makes us happy. It's really about spending time with the people you love and deepening relationships. And if you're out there chasing these egoic things, your relationships inevitably suffer. And so that was sort of the great lesson we learned. And she took that route happily.
Nice work. Yeah, it really is people and relationships and experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And but um, like a stoic philosophy, like, can you be just as happy eating steak and lobster as beans and rice? And I think when you get to that point, that's an amazing inner confidence that you have when you go out in the world. And I talk about this a lot on my podcast, where today I can take big risks because I know I would be very happy just being homeless. Like, I know exactly what I would do. I'd go to Newport Beach. I'd live on, I'd live on a tent on the beach. I'd figure out how to rebuild at the public library. I'd hike and bike and enjoy the beach and work, and it would be an amazing life. It wouldn't be so bad.
I think I like that. I think sometimes about moving out of my house, literally just, pretending that I was moving to a new house, move everything out, and then move back in and use that process to cull, which I wouldn't be surprised if we could get rid of like 60% of the stuff. And that stuff somehow starts to just weigh you down.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, and we all get, we all know about the hedonic treadmill. We all
Right.
adapt to it, and so yeah, but you kind of have to go through it first. I think it's hard. I think most people sort of have to learn a hard lesson with it and experience it, instead of just someone telling them, "Hey, you're gonna adapt. You're not gonna be happy. Trust me." But, you know,
Right. Yeah. It's something. It's very hard to teach your
yeah.
kids. It's one that's experiential to learn. When you mentioned the sort of reset or figuring it out from '09 to 12, um, and you also talked a little bit about your process of once you have an interested seller or somebody that you're going to rescue from their situation. Talked about value to land, what's around it, other attractive features, things like that. What does make raw land valuable?
It's so funny because that's what makes this niche so special. Is it's never going to be sexy. Like, you won't see me on HGTV or the DIY network on Flip This Land. The before pictures are all land. The after pictures are all land. Like, we just shuffle paper and make money. Um, I just sit in front of a computer. I can't even tell you the last time I looked at a piece of raw land. So, essentially the value proposition is in the pricing structure. When we buy the asset 25 cents on the dollar, we're making our money on the buy. I mean, we could just flip that thing at 100% markup and do fine. So that's really what it is. It's that typical real estate cliche. You make your money on the buy.
On the buy. Gotcha. And I think that answers another question I wanted to ask you is do you ever venture into land improvement on any of the properties you've bought? It doesn't sound like it.
No, no, that's, I'm dirt rich. I just,
Dirt rich.
I just buy the dirt. I don't go vertical. I don't go through the development process. There's a lot of risk in that, in doing that process. But if you do it, and there are people that are really good at it, and they 8 to 12 months later they can make $400,000 on just one deal, getting a parcel shovel ready for a developer. But it's a lot of risks, a lot of capital. Um, you know, I'd rather not do that. I'm really conservative.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're where you mentioned you started with 10 half-acre parcels in New Mexico, and then just the hypothetical example you gave me of somebody who's behind on their taxes on 20 acres in Texas. Um, do you so maybe more of kind of current state from where you started? Do you find your model now taking you to land that is closer to urban areas, or does it tend to be really, really rural, like quite away from developed centers?
Um, yeah, I mean, we're trying to buy property that's an hour to 3 hours outside of the city. That's kind of our sweet spot there.
Okay, yeah, so that would be, yeah, maybe someday that develops an hour away. Could be, I don't know, could be getaway land, weekend getaway ranch, get outside the city. But yeah, 1 to 3 hours is accessible, but still pretty far out.
No, it's still pretty far out. I mean, our market is typically um, investors, land bankers, people that don't like people, military people, um, no, recreational people. Uh, Sometimes I call it man jewelry, where a lot of guys just like the way it feels. Be like, yeah, I just bought this 40-acre ranch. They never even go out to look at it. They just, you know, it's like owning it.
I got my ranch in Texas.
Yeah, my ranch in Texas. Maybe I'll go out there one day. I've got a client, and actually he's in your neighborhood. He's a CEO in San Diego, and every year he's like, Mark, I want to just do a note 5 grand a month, and I want to buy a couple hundred acres, and we create a portfolio for him, and he does it. And I'm like, what are you going to do with all this, Don? He's like, I don't know. I just think it's cool.
Landowner, maybe he'll be the next Ted Turner. Get some buffalo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's a great generational asset um, for people as well because it lasts forever, nothing to maintain, nothing
Right.
to protect, and who knows?
Do you ever tend to see? Do you end up buying from corporations? Just one example that's always stuck in my head. I grew up a good bit of my life in Georgia, and pine trees everywhere. Right? They grow like crazy, and they're used for paper pulp. And so there's been a process over the years of International Paper, Georgia Paper, or sorry, Georgia Pacific, sort of owning these hundreds or thousands of acres of pine tree farms.
Hmm.
And as the cities grow, these guys will recede kind of further further away and sell off land that's a little closer to cities. And maybe that is sort of the guy that wants 100-acre ranch or whatever it is. But do you ever in what you go looking for? Maybe not, since you're kind of looking for people who are financially troubled. Do you ever see corporations putting land up for sale?
Yeah, I mean, we call these spreadsheet deals where there's corporations, there's a tax lien funds where
Mm,
they don't want the land, but they had to buy a bunch of it. They had to put this capital to work, and all of a sudden they look at their spreadsheet like, oh, this is a bunch of raw land. We don't want this, and they'll just, we'll just buy it for you know, for nothing because they just want it off the spreadsheet. And those are great deals because they're not emotionally attached either. So we do that. Those are bigger deals. I'd say like for our clients, like the average acquisition is really small. It's like 5 grand. We've got a program for accredited investors where we do these bigger deals for them, and we put a lot more capital to work, and we do these sort of more sophisticated type of buys.
right. Okay, let's get into that. But one more quick one before we do. When you mentioned the example of again, probably comes from the 2009 situation, and you made the distinction between using land contracts and a deed of trust. So if you do have to, maybe this is the wrong word, but foreclose that note, make your claim for non-payment. It's just a contractual issue at that point? Is there any judicial process involved?
No, the way the contract reads is we keep the down payment, we keep all the monthly payments. You've got 30 days to cure your default. After that 31st day, we resell that property. We get a new down, we get a new monthly payment.
Cool. Okay, so just a default.
Yeah.
Easy. Okay. And so let's I love to always get to the how, sort of actionable steps. So we know you've got a book, Dirt Rich. Who is that for? Is that somebody who wants to get in, learn a little bit more, and maybe try this
Yeah,
themselves?
yeah, exactly. It's exactly for that person. And they can go on Amazon and get a really nice overview, hear my story about it. And, the whole mission that I have in life is very simple. It's to help rid the world of solo economic dependency, which means that if you're personally not working, you're not making any money. And whether it's somebody that's highly paid, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, they're still their income is a 1-to-1 ratio. The surgeon doesn't make any money unless their hands are in someone's body. So what we're helping people do is get that side income that's passive so that they can work because they want to, not because they have to. And true freedom in life is when you work when you want, where you want, and with whom you want. But so many people are trapped in a job they don't love, or they're in a profession that, could be a little bit insecure. Maybe if they get hurt, there's no other side income to protect them. And so this is a way to, build that other stream of income where, you just have money in your sleep, which is ideal.
Completely ideal. Henry Ford would not like you and your mission. Any industrialist needs a whole bunch of people that are tied to a paycheck.
No, absolutely. And luckily for the world, it takes a special person to have enough awareness to sort of escape that sort of mentality where, so many people grow up, you know, get a good education, get a good job, and you work, 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 you save, and you retire when you're 65. Um, not not the way I would want to live, and people that are attracted to my message are like, oh yeah, this is a better way to live life because life is short and we should be doing what we want to. We're not built to just work, work, work.
Yeah, I think COVID has been an amazing, it's an amazing challenge, but it's an amazing opportunity for so many people in so many ways as well. And one of those is that lesson that we're not so good at teaching in school, that lesson of what job stability, income stability looks like versus, perception. You mentioned surgeons. These are typically thought of as very high income sort of careers and people. But if you couldn't produce because you weren't allowed to do anything that wasn't a health emergency during COVID, I have a number of doctor friends who are, really unhappy right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a thing. I mean, sole economic dependency is no fun. There's this, baseline insecurity that they have where, they can't get off that treadmill. And what's even worse is they build their overhead to a point where it's really hard to get off that treadmill. And and so, we try to show a better way.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite books, The Millionaire Next Door. You've got the keeping up with the Joneses, the
Yeah.
expenses, keeping up with the income, and then you got the true sort of independent millionaires that were interviewed for that book. It's the guy driving the X number of years old Ford and things that were just surprising to the guys that researched the book. But that always sticks with me, right? Is sort of controlling the cost side of things as you grow the income side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's tough because, we're so affected by our culture. And if all your surgeon friends are driving Teslas and have, 4,500 square foot homes, you don't want to be the outsider that's driving a used car and has a reasonable home. Like,
Right,
oh, yeah,
completely.
yeah,
So if somebody's moving from, let's say real estate's already a tool that they like, maybe they keep doing the one-off residential rental property, the next condo, the next single family home that they're going to buy, they're going to spend time getting it rented, improved, everything themselves, manage it. Yeah, maybe they go like, oh wow, maybe maybe this whole tenant thing is a little too much work, and all the things you mentioned earlier about eviction protection and things going on right now. So maybe the book is a first step towards a different style of real estate investing. What's beyond that? Because you mentioned your company and your service and your investment options a couple times. Can you tell us more about how somebody could scale or get your professional guidance, help, access to you? What does that look like?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we got a bunch of different training programs. I think a great start is just to see, does this model even resonate with me? And if they go to landgeek.com/quick deals, I've got a course that's normally $97. I'd love to offer to your listeners for free, and they can just start doing it in the simplest way possible. And then for those people that have way more money than they have time, we have, different, more sophisticated programs that they can talk to me about, where, it's just kind of done for you, and you get an outsized return on that. So we have everything from do it yourself to, coaching to, hey, just do it for me.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And you've got options for smaller investors. You've got options for accredited investors, kind of the whole spectrum, it sounds
The
like.
whole spectrum, exactly. As long as we're getting you out of civil economic dependency, and I'm working my mission, I feel good about it.
Awesome. So the landgeek.com, and super appreciate the offer to get the audience in on some free information and a deeper look at what you guys do. I really appreciate that. What else? Where can people find? Are you still running your podcast? Are you on social
I
media?
am. I am. You got to come on the podcast, Michael. The Art of Passive Income podcast.
The Art of Passive Income. I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
I did go on. I don't know if we both know Paul. I'm going to forget his last name right now, but How to Lose Money, the How to Lose Money
Yeah, I
podcast.
was on that podcast. It's a great one. You're right. How to lose money.
Those are some painful lessons from real estate.
Yeah. Is that Paul Moore?
Paul Moore. There you
Paul
go. Thank
Moore.
you.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I love what he does with his real estate investing fund as well. Just the idea of something that's going to serve through probably both ends of the economic cycle spectrum of storage units, and I think he's got mobile home parks in the portfolio. I really like that idea as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So great. I'm going to check out the podcast. Love to come have a chat with you on there someday. Thank you for that. And then looks like you're on Instagram and YouTube as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on all those fine social media platforms.
Where we'll also get an ad for the Tesla that you just mentioned, now that my phone heard me say that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, well, I'll certainly get links for all that stuff up with the episode, with the show notes for this one. Mark, I really appreciate you being willing to share, not only the knowledge and kind of what you're doing, but really opening up about some of your process, pulling back the covers on it. And I'm excited to share this with people and maybe get them over to some more information on your website and go from there.
Yeah, Michael, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you so much.
100%. Yeah. Thanks for your time today. All right. Thank you again to Mark for that one. Really interesting stuff. I think we all realize with asset prices through the roof, the way the economy is going, printing trillions of dollars in handouts, that inflation is on the horizon. So real assets, tangible assets, land, other real estate, these are potentially very good dollar value inflation hedges going out into the future. Moreover, Mark has just talked about and shown us a way to go out and buy distressed property at a deeply discounted rate. The old saying applies: you make your money on the purchase. And then he talked about some creative ways to either flip or turn that into passive cash flow. Really creative stuff. As he says, it's real estate investing without tenants, toilets, or termites. So really intriguing. I went out and I've gone through his webinar and a couple of his free options that are out there. Makes me realize how much potential that there may be in that space. Also, in terms of sort of time value of money, do I have the expertise and time to dig through and find the right properties? I would encourage, check out his stuff, and you'll probably come to the same conclusion I did, which is you'll probably also want to leverage some of his coaching and paid services to make that investing and passive income making process more efficient, better use of your time. That's where I landed on it, but please go check him out. You're going to find the links to his website, social, his YouTube, and the webinar and other free offerings he set up for us at manofmastery.com/074. All right, guys, that's it for this time. Go check out the Land Geek and get back out there and get after it.